From IBMTV International Broadcast Media, welcome to American Politics, a unique broadcast exploring this election. No agenda, no gotcha questions, just straight talk. I'm Bill Trezevant, your host. Today we are in Florida with former U.S. Senator George LeMieux.
Well, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Thank you. Thanks for having me on today.
Great, I greatly appreciate you taking time out of your valuable schedule. If I may, can I start with just a little introduction for our audience?
Sure.
Okay. For more than 20 years, George has been lead trial counsel in federal and state courts in civil and regulatory matters. He has argued cases before the United States Supreme Court, the Supreme Court of Florida, and Florida's intermediate appellate courts. George is an advisor to Fortune 500 companies, their officers, and boards. George served as Florida's 34th United States Senator in the 111th Congress from 2009 to 2011. While in the United States Senate, he served on the Commerce, Science, and Transportation Committee, the Armed Services Committee, and the Special Committee on Aging. He successfully passed legislation on healthcare fraud, export promotion, rating agency reform, small business promotion, as well as a treaty resolution on tactical nuclear weapons. George is the chairman of the board of Gunster. He is the founder of the LeMieux Center for Public Policy at Palm Beach Atlantic University. Senator, welcome and thank you.
Bill, thanks for having me on.
First, how's the weather in Florida? I guess you get that ass all the time.
It's good. It's starting to cool down a little bit, so we're looking forward to all of our friends who spend 6 months and a day here in Florida to come back soon because the weather's starting to turn nice.
Yes, the snowbirds are getting ready to fly, aren't they, Senator?
They are. They are. We welcome them.
Okay. Now, this election, 2020, well, first, the year is just like anything we've ever seen. And this election year certainly is going to be one for the ages. And every 4 years, it seems, that all eyes of the world really turn to Florida. And as Tim Russert said back in 2000, Florida, Florida, Florida. So you are the gentleman of the hour. The world is watching, and we are very interested. Tell us about Florida, Senator.
Well, Florida is always a key state in any presidential election. And really for Republicans, it's very hard to win the presidential election without winning Florida. The map is just hard for Republicans. And without Florida, it's really almost impossible. We are always a place where we have close elections. Our last election 2 years ago, when our governor was elected and our U.S. Senator Rick Scott, that election was extremely close. Some of those contests were less than 10,000 vote differences and required recounts under our state law. And, you know, we had millions of people voting. So Florida's always close. Florida will be close again. I think the president is narrowly ahead right now, even though you see some polling showing Vice President Biden in the lead. I think the president, I would say, if you made me pick, will win Florida, but it will be extremely tight. And I wouldn't be surprised if it isn't within 0.5% or 0.25%, which would both require different types of recounts.
Okay. And before we get into that issue, I had this, to help our audience and really the rest of the world, because we're an international broadcast and they are astutely aware of the importance of Florida. But to give them a sense, Florida is multiple states, or some might argue, really an entire country contained within its borders. What can you tell us about that, Senator?
Well, it really is, and I think that's the right way to think about Florida. Is it is a country. We have almost 22 million plus people now, headed on our way towards 23 million. About less than 1,000 people, close to 1,000 people, move to Florida every single day. So that's why we continue to grow. We're the third largest state in the country. If you break us off from the United States, we're the 16th or 17th largest economy in the world. And Florida really performs like different sub-regions. What's happening in Pensacola is very different than what's happening in Orlando. And what's happening in Orlando is very different than what's happening in Miami. We're almost like city states because there's these urban areas, but then there are large rural areas that separate them. The only place that's really one kind of contiguous development is Southeast Florida, from Palm Beach down to Miami. And people migrate from different parts of the country. I mean, the old saw is that you can know where people come from based upon which highway they're near. If you're on the west coast of Florida, you drove down 75, so you're from Ohio and Michigan and Midwestern states. If you're on the east coast of Florida, you drove down 95, so you're from the Mid-Atlantic and New York and those states. So we're just a very diverse state, and it really is more like a country.
Okay, then that having been said, and I find this particularly interesting, and I really do want to rely on your expertise because you also served as the former chief of staff to the former Governor Chris, and in that regard, you were also considered, at least in our professional circles, the maestro of that campaign, which is a high honor indeed. How then are you looking at the president's national campaign? Because this campaign is really one for the ages, and we're only 25 days out. How are you seeing it from your point of view, Senator?
Well, it's the most difficult campaign year because it's the most difficult year we've had in probably since World War II in this country. So the rules are different. I believe that President Trump would have won re-election probably handily had the pandemic not happened because the economy was doing so well. It's very difficult to unseat a president with a booming economy. And we had a great economy, the lowest unemployment rate in 50 years, not just for whites, but for Hispanics, for African Americans, for Asians. So the economy was booming, but that's not the case anymore. Now the economy has struggled. We are recovering, but we're still in this pandemic. There are millions of people around the country out of work. So it makes it hard. And now the president, has COVID and can't campaign the way that he probably wants to. So that is really changing up this election, and it's making it very difficult for the Trump team.
Okay, if I might, Senator, I want to kind of drill down for our audience in this regard. The Trump campaign has had a message of focusing in on the economy, which everyone knows is one of the most effective ways toward and the path towards re-election for the president. Now, I guess my question is his economic message that the economy is coming back and that hope is right there on the horizon and he just needs 4 more years to complete his term, is that effectively penetrating to the voters as you see it?
I think it's starting to, but I don't think it is. And I think, unfortunately, the debate between the president and the vice president was so poor that those messages didn't get through. And I think that's really the strongest argument for the Trump campaign is, we rebuilt this economy. We had the best economy in the world. We can do it again. I'm starting to see their commercials, but I think that's got to be front and center because ultimately, although there's a lot of issues that are important in this campaign, having a job, being able to provide for your family is number one. It's the number one issue. And the Trump team really needs to reinforce that and remind people how good things were before the pandemic. And then also paint the contrast that if Biden and Harris are elected, you're not going to have this strong recovery because they're going to raise taxes and they're going to increase regulation and they're going to do things that hurt job creators.
Okay, and on that point, I just want to kind of bring in, because we did witness the vice presidential debate last evening, and so I wanted to ask, what were your initial perceptions? How did you feel about the vice president's performance, and do you think he made effective use of his time in advocating those significant campaign themes that are going to decide this election in a mere 25 days?
I thought the vice president did very well. In fact, I thought the debate was very good. I thought it was a good representation of both parties. I think Senator Harris did well also. I give the edge to the vice president. I think he did make the point that under a Biden-Harris administration that they will be entering into, international agreements, which are going to hurt jobs. I think that point came through. That's what I would really be hammering home. I think the vice president did a very fine job last night.
Okay, now, there are a couple of issues that were significant, and one is that, and this was true of both candidates candidates for vice president last evening, and that is that there was a question regarding had either candidate spoken with their running mates about succession plans. Now, for the first time in my life, I had never heard of such a question at any debate in any way, shape, or form. Because if you don't mind me, Senator, and I know this is serious, but it's kind of like asking, if you're elected, are you prepared for your friend to die? Now, I don't know what the reason was behind that particular question, but do you have any thoughts on that question and or their responses? But I personally thought it was perhaps a bit beyond the pale. Senator?
Yeah, it's a weird question. I mean, look, these guys are septuagenarians, and we haven't had two people this old run for the White House, but we also have much better health care, and people are in much better shape than they used to be, even in their 70s.
Yeah.
But it's an extraordinary question, and it's not the kind of conversation that I would ever think would happen in politics between a president and a vice president.
Yes,
we'll go back to FDR. I mean, Harry Truman didn't even know how sick FDR was.
Yes.
And when they called him when he was playing cards over in the House of Representatives with Speaker Rayburn, he was shocked that the president had died. So this idea that you're going to, just being like Harris, just being put on the ticket would say to the vice president, well, what's going to happen when you die? Just that's not a conversation I would expect to happen.
Okay, and Senator, on that point, this is what I really wanted to drive at, because our audience, we do reach those people that are honestly taking this seriously and thinking about issues and without all the clamor or all the noise. And that is this: that do you think that the media is being fair in its coverage? Because questions like that, Senator, would suggest, at least to a reasonable person, that maybe the media has lost track of what they're doing and trying to drive through the wrong messages to the American voter. And I wanted to see if you had any thoughts on that.
Well, I think the media, for in large part, present company excluded, is not doing its job. I think they're biased. I think I could talk about this for an hour, but we have this phenomenon, local news, the old expression, if it bleeds, it leads, which is, put the murder on TV, put the crimes on TV, because people will watch that because it's captivating and it appeals to their sense of fear. Well, the same thing has happened in the national news. Everything is an emergency. Everything is breaking news, and everything is negative by both the left and the right, but specifically, I think, on the left. And it's not helpful. It doesn't help the American experience. It doesn't help build community. It divides us. And the media plays a big part of the responsibility of how divided America is right now.
Okay. And thank you for that, Senator, because that then allows me at least to ask a couple of questions of you, because I want to kind of focus in on some of the politics. Right now, currently, the big buzz is over the Supreme Court nominee. You as the former senator would have been in a position to pass judgment and either confirm or dissent. How are you looking at the president's current Supreme Court nominee?
I think she's a fantastic pick. I think Judge Barrett is extremely well thought of. She's a former Supreme Court clerk for Justice Scalia, a Notre Dame law professor, a Seventh Circuit Court of Appeal judge, which for your international viewers, that's one step below the U.S. Supreme Court. She's well thought of by both conservatives and liberals who are not in this partisan game. She's a person of character, integrity. She's got a great mind. She's going to get confirmed in the U.S. Senate. The president has the right to nominate her. He's the president, and the Senate has the right to confirm her. So I think you'll see that happen in the next couple of weeks. Okay.
And Senator, that kind of leads into this question, because much of the shock and awe that people, in addition to the timing of the pick, which you're absolutely right, the president has the right and the Republicans are in charge of the Senate, they can certainly move on, and that there is no barrier to this, but they are making a big deal out of it. However, there are at least cries from the far left that are suggesting that if this nominee is confirmed and the court were to take a decidedly conservative shift in its outlook on the Constitution, that the Democrats are floating the idea of what hasn't been tried since Franklin Delano Roosevelt, which is a court packing plan. What are your thoughts on the court packing plan? And for our audience, that is essentially the Democrats would expand the number of Supreme Court justices such that they would make the conservatives a minority again. Senator?
Well, I think it's important for everyone to understand that the number of 9 justices for the U.S. Supreme Court is not in the Constitution. It's a law. So there was an attempt by President Roosevelt, as you mentioned, to change the law, to put as many as 15 justices on the court so that he could change the outcome, because he didn't like the fact that the Supreme Court was telling him that he was exercising authority that he didn't have as president. I think it's outrageous that they would propose this. I'm worried that the Democrats are going to take over the Senate and they're going to get rid of the filibuster, which we've had, again, it's not in the Constitution, but we've had for more than 100 years and which keeps the Senate from being like the House. The Senate is the only deliberative body in the world that is not a majoritarian institution. What I mean by that is that it takes more than 51 votes to get something done. And that is really within the spirit of what our founders wanted. They wanted the Senate to be deliberative. They wanted it to be, although this is a modern analogy, the brakes on the car. The House is, closest to the people. They want to do things. Let's get it done. Let's get it done. The Senate's supposed to be wisdom and not jumping to conclusions. If they change that to getting rid of the filibuster, where they start to pack the court, the Senate is going to lose its honor. It's going to lose what makes it special. And we're basically just going to have two houses of representatives. And that's not going to be within what our founders intended. And it's not going to be what served us well for all these many years.
Okay. Now, Senator, with that in mind, I wanted to ask you just to kind of take a step back so that we can begin to look at the larger trends and issues that are affecting this race nationally. And one of them, obviously, is our current foreign policy. And first, I'd like to ask you about our current economic foreign policy. We've got tariffs with China, and we're in a dispute with them. And we have differing relationships running around the world with various agreements. Of course, we have a complete instability across Europe. You've got Brexit with no deal going on so far. Europe is in chaos. What are your thoughts then, Senator, on our economic foreign policy so far?
Well, one, I would say the pandemic has thrown everything off base, and it's difficult. Trade has obviously been impacted. The lack of travel, the ability to fly to go to Europe or Asia, the quarantines that have been put in place when you do travel to places, and shutting down travel between places like China and the United States has certainly impacted trade. I think that one of President Trump's strongest attributes of his first 4 years was how he's dealt with China, that he's been tough with China. Mm-hmm. China's been stealing our intellectual property. The government's behind it. That impacts not only our private sector, it impacts our military, where they've been stealing the secrets for our military. So I think that the president has been right to be tough on China. And we have to know, too, that China is aggressively pursuing a military to compete with the United States. They are competing with us in the South China Sea. They are trying to reclaim islands. Mm-hmm. They're trying to prevent navigation. So the reason why trade works around the world as well as it does is because the United States Navy is basically in charge of policing the world's seas and making sure that trade flows between countries we like and countries we don't. So it's really important that the next president of the United States is focused on making sure that America retains its supremacy on the seas and making sure that trade is fair and free, because it really is what it lifts people up. If you look at the numbers in terms of how many people have come out of poverty around the world in the last 50 years, those numbers are staggering. And a lot of that has been done through trade and economic building of countries, which bring poor people into more prosperous positions.
Okay. And I guess on that point, and this is just another controversial piece, that is our immigration policy, Senator. It has divided the country, and currently, at least the past couple of days, the Department of Homeland Security has begun to step up enforcement of our laws regarding finding illegal citizens that are here in the United States. What are your thoughts, and how do you see that affecting the election, if at all?
Immigration has not been talked about near as much. That was sort of one of the central arguments and central tenets of the Trump campaign 4 years ago. Mm-hmm. It's not been talked about as much. And I think the pandemic has overwhelmed all of these issues. We have to make sure our borders are secure. Every nation in the world has the right to secure their borders. The United States does too. One of the things that we've been working on at my Public Policy Center at Palm Beach Atlantic University is focusing on immigration. And one of the fellows this year actually did a focused paper and research on what it means to go beyond the wall and think about how we can have better immigration, both humanitarian immigration, but also protecting the interest of the United States. And there's a lot to be done in Latin America, in Central America, to make sure that those countries are back up on their feet and they're doing their jobs for their people, because when things are better in those countries, there's less likely to have the incentive to try to leave. And then also that they're securing their own people and not allowing a free flowing stream of people up through the isthmus of Central America into the United States. So immigration is still important, but Bill, this election, it really hasn't been front and center.
Okay, well then let me ask you this, and this is more of a larger question, and that is whether it's on the economy, whether it's a stimulus package, whether it's the immigration debate. The Senate, being the deliberative body, it's been portrayed as not being as cooperative as it has been in the past. Now, Senator, the honor of being elected and serving as a United States Senator is a rare privilege indeed. You're only the 34th Senator from Florida, and that is really an exclusive club. What do you think is going on with your former colleagues in the Senate, where the talks of the nuclear option of abolishing the filibuster and things of that nature?
Bill, the immigration is the hardest issue that the U.S. government tackles, the Congress tackles. The last time, Republicans did pass something, it didn't pass the House. The time before that, it was people like Barack Obama when he was a senator who killed the bill, even though you had John McCain and Ted Kennedy working on it together with George W. Bush. So, people think, oh, it's Republicans who don't want immigration reform. It's not just Republicans. The unions play a big part in the Democratic Party, and they don't want immigration reform for a lot of different reasons. They don't want workers coming in to compete with their union members. So it is a multifaceted, difficult issue. People from different states have very different views about immigration. People from border states have a very different view than people from interior states. It's a very difficult issue. When I was there, I was trying to work on the Dreamers issue. These are these kids who were brought here through no fault of their own, but they're illegal. And I tried to get something done with the Democrats. And frankly, my view of it was that they liked having the political issue more than they liked having a solution. So immigration is a very challenging issue in Congress.
Yes, but what I hear from you is that you are generally optimistic because there is common ground, but for the hysteria that is this election currently. Let me ask you this. And this is really important because the rest of our world viewers are particularly interested in American politics. And if you were to describe to them the trends that you see or that may be emerging over these final 25 days, how do you see it going? Because we really are in the crunch period for the closing arguments of this campaign. And what trends do you see and what arguments ought to be made by the current administration?
I think that the current administration needs to focus on jobs like we've discussed and bringing back the economy, bringing back people's jobs, get people working again. Don't put up impediments. Don't create new regulations. One of the best things that this president has done, as instituted by executive order, a rule that says you cannot create a new regulation unless you cut two prior ones. That changes the whole dynamic in Washington, D.C. Usually regulations are built upon regulation. This way, the engine starts to drive in reverse and starts to actually reduce regulation. So I think that's the closing argument for the Trump campaign. Remember what it was like before the pandemic. Remember how good the economy was. We built it once. We can build it again. If you let Biden and Harris take over, it's going to be like it was when it was Biden, Obama, and we had the slowest economic recovery after a significant recession since the Great Depression.
Okay. Well, Senator, we are closing in on time. And one of the things that we like to do here at American Politics is because it is a conversation. It's a conversation with our colleagues and our fellow citizens, you and I, from around the country. And I always like to take a moment and ask our guests, today tell us about Florida, what it's like. Tell us about your great state. And remember, you're talking to the world, Senator. So, and the state motto is what, Senator?
We're the Sunshine State. So come and visit. Florida's a wonderful place. Everywhere I go around the world, people know Florida. Usually they say Disney World or South Beach. Those are the two things that people know. But we are a great place to visit. We've got beautiful beaches, beautiful golf courses, beautiful theme parks. We also are a great place to live. It's warm, temperate climate, no shoveling snow in the Sunshine State. And it's also a wonderful place to start a business. We have no state income tax. We have low regulations. Business people are flocking to Florida from places like New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, California, because they want a low tax, low regulation state. And it's also a wonderful place to raise a family. We have good schools. We have the best public university system in the country, as rated by U.S. News and World Report. Great K through 12 schools. It's a great place to live, work, play, raise a family. So come on down. We'd love to have you.
Fantastic. And actually, I did have one more question, because I wanted to give you a moment to talk about your Public Policy Center. Can you tell us a little bit about that and the work that you do?
Sure, Bill. Thank you. Yeah. So at Palm Beach Atlantic University, which is a university in Palm Beach County, right? It's one of the most beautiful places in Florida, right across from the island of Palm Beach. It's a great school. It's a service-focused school. The kids are wonderful. They're really committed to bettering their community. And our Public Policy Center brings speakers in from all over the country, even around the world. We had Prime Minister Tony Blair last year as a speaker. We've had other dignitaries, luminaries, people who are in office, senators, governors, journalists who've come and spoken. We don't charge anything for that. We've got a wonderful board of benefactors that helps us secure those people to come speak. We also work with fellows. I mentioned one of our fellows earlier worked on an immigration issue this year. I work with 2 fellows every year, 2 outstanding undergraduate students who do some research on an important topic. So we are trying to build serious conversations and a place for serious thought about policy issues and solving the challenges and seizing the opportunities that face us here in Florida and in this great country. And we're doing that at the LeMieux Center for Public Policy at Palm Beach Atlantic University.
Thank you, Senator. I can tell you, I personally am honored to share some time with you. You have a long, distinguished career of service. And so on that point, I want to thank you for your service and your continued service as we move through. I've often been told by others in this cycle, I guess, buckle up. Would you agree with that assessment for the next couple of weeks?
Wow, you have to, because look at where we've come so far. It's been a bumpy road. I expect it to continue, and wouldn't surprise me if there's not another surprise between now and Election Day. So Stay tuned. Make sure you vote. If you've requested an absentee ballot, fill your ballot out and send it in now. You don't want that ballot not to be counted. Thousands of ballots every year are not counted in places like Florida because they come in too late. So make sure you exercise the most important privilege you have and right you have in the United States of America, which is to vote.
Thank you, Senator. And on behalf of IBMTV and family and the American Politics family, you have a standing invitation anytime you want to come back and visit us. We certainly appreciate it, and we are honored. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bill, and thank you for the great interview.
Have a great day. Thank you.